You just watched the 12 News Congressional Primary debate. I'm digital reporter Adriana Rosas Rivera. Primary day is September 13, and we have on hand the campaigns of the folks that are running to succeed Congressman Jim Langevin, communications strategist Joy Fox, former Biden administration official Sarah Morgenthau, General Treasurer Seth Magaziner, and of course former State Representative David Siegel, all hoping to succeed Langevin and represent a seat that is seen as potentially could flip towards the Republicans in November. Like I said, we have the candidates, spokespersons on hand to give us reaction to how they think the debate went. First, we have Dan Cohen, representing former State Representative David Siegel. How are you doing, Dan?
Good, thank you.
So how do you think that this went for your candidate? Do you think he did what he had to do to stand out?
Yeah, I do. I think that the things that stood out is, first of all, David has a record that I think he talked about really well for 20 years on the local level, on the state level, and on the national level, addressing the issues that people are talking about as critical today. He's got an adult lifetime of experience addressing them and winning really important victories. And I think that's what's critical for people to see, that it's not just someone taking the right stances on the issues, but someone who knows how to bring people together and really accomplish that stuff. And he's uniquely qualified for the seat in that way.
This seat is seen as one that's friendlier towards Republicans, and it's a tough matchup against former Cranston Mayor Alan Fung in November. Siegel is pretty progressive, probably the most progressive of the four. Do you think that the district would want to elect someone that progressive compared to Congressman Langevin now?
I think that David's incredibly well poised for the general election because he's been working those issues that are not purely partisan issues. He's been focused on corporate power. He's been focused on wealth tax issues. He's been talking to the kind of reforms that frustrated people in either party or independents understand are coming from a structure that is too dominated by corporate special interests and too dominated by a corrupt system that if we don't address, then the kind of reforms that we're going to, the kind of changes are going to be too moderate to really affect people's lives. So I think David is able to deliver that message greater than anyone.
And is there something in the debate that they didn't touch on that you think is really important for viewers at home to know about your candidate?
I mean, I think that there's certain issues that are, fundamental economic issues. For example, healthcare, it came up a little bit. But, given that, it's one of the major causes of bankruptcy. There are millions of people who don't have health care. David is a really strong, broadly supported health care plan. That's different from the other candidates who are on that stage. I do think that people are taking their time to look into the race, getting a sense of where there are those really important differences. And so that will continue to get out there. I think among the things that came up, he did a very good job of showing where the distinctions were.
Great. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah,
of course. All right. And so up next, we have campaign manager Brian McNamara representing Sarah Morgenthau. Brian, nice to have you. Why don't you come on over? Feel free.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. So how do you think that this went for your candidate?
Look, I think that tonight, Sarah Morgenthau made clear that she is the best candidate to beat Alan Fung and the only candidate with the experience to do the job in Congress on day one. It is her experience that really makes her the best candidate for Rhode Island right now. And as she talked about, she's faced a lot of adversity in her career. She's taken on a lot of tough challenges in Washington, and in the face of adversity, she's delivered results.
There's been a lot of talk about this being a race where it's a chance to elect a woman. How is Morgenthau more qualified over the other candidates and over Fox, who is also a woman, to represent this district?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, Sarah Morgenthau is the most qualified candidate in this race on either side of the aisle. She's the only one with the experience in Washington delivering results that she can attest to. And look, folks right now are not looking for another career politician. They're looking for someone who speaks for them, who's going to get things done, who isn't going to talk in partisan platitudes or empty promises, but is going to deliver for them, to fight like hell, and make sure that they have a real voice in Washington.
What would you say to viewers at home who are wondering, how well Morgenthau knows the district? There's been some questions about her residency. What would you say to them?
Yeah, absolutely. And Sarah's been happy to answer this question, but I'll add that, she got married in the backyard of her home. They've been here for 40 years. She went to Washington to serve her country, which is so honorable and so admirable, and one of the reasons that I really appreciate working for her. But at the end of the day, it's because of that experience. Look, her heart is right here in Rhode Island, and her experience is everywhere. She's worked across the country, across the globe. And Adriana, if I can just add one more thing, it's that if you take anything away, the viewer at home tonight, from this debate, It's that Sarah Morgenthau, not only has the experience and not only is going to fight for you, but she cares. She cares about you. She cares about your family, your dreams, your hopes, your aspirations. She cares that there is more money on the table at the end of the month. And most importantly, she cares that you have a voice who's fighting for them, not for partisan talking points, but for your families and making sure that you get the resources you need right here in Rhode Island.
Great. Thanks so much for being here, Brian.
Thanks so much, Adriana.
Thank you. And up next, we have Patricia Socaris, who is the spokesperson for General Treasurer Seth Magaziner. Hi, Patricia. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So tell us, how do you think that Magaziner did today?
I think the treasurer did excellent. I think there's a lot of voters who were tuning in tonight to really understand the positions of each one of these candidates, and they walked away with a very clear understanding of where Treasurer Magaziner stands, and it's with them, right? He's going to go to Congress in order to protect a woman's right to choose. He's going to address the gun violence epidemic, and he is laser focused on lowering the cost of health care and gas prices for Rhode Islanders.
And Magaziner is seen as the front runner of the race. Do you think he did enough to stand out in this debate? Because there's still 37% of voters are undecided as of our last poll. So do you think he really did what he had to do to secure this bid?
Sure. I think anyone that's tuning in tonight is going to walk away knowing that he has an excellent track record, and that's what distinguishes him from the rest of the candidates. It's what's going to help him make sure that he's ready to go day one in Washington. He has spent the last 8 years rebuilding over 200 schools across our district. He was side by side with advocates passing the Reproductive Privacy Act to codify protections here in Rhode Island for women's rights to choose. And he's managed our pension to an all-time high. So that's given retirement security to thousands of Rhode Islanders, our nurses, our teachers, our police officers who deserve to retire in dignity.
Magaziner has also faced questions about his residency. He had a home in the 1st Congressional District, now living in the 2nd Congressional District. What do you have to say to viewers that are maybe questioning if he really knows the district he's trying to represent?
I would tell him to look at the track record. The numbers don't lie. His record doesn't lie. Like I mentioned before, he has extensive work in everywhere from, Burrillville to Westerly to West Warwick. He's really delivered on all of his promises to Rhode Islanders. And I think we need more of that in Washington. We need leaders who are going to keep their word and are, going to lead with integrity. And he's that person that we need in Washington.
Anything else that they didn't touch on in the debate that you think viewers should know about Treasurer Magaziner?
I think that we need more leaders in Washington who are going to fight for working people and that truly understand the issues at hand and are effective, are going to get things done. And Seth Magaziner is that candidate.
Great. Thank you so much for being here, Patricia.
Thank you.
And up next, we have Kirtley Fisher, campaign manager for Joy Fox. Why don't you come on over, Kirtley? How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Adrian?
I'm doing good. So tell us, do you think that Fox did what she needed to do to stand out tonight?
Yes. So I think your viewers were able to see why Joy is the right candidate for this district. She is from Cranston, lives in Warwick now. She knows this district inside and out. She has worked for Congressman Langevin, Gina Raimondo as governor, and now she runs a small business. A lot of people in the district run a small business, so she knows what people are going through right now, and that came through on the stage tonight.
Fox, like the other candidates, Magaziner is a front runner. Fox is polling single digits like some of the other candidates, or all the other candidates. So do you think that Fox did what she needed to do to stand out today and convince that 37% of undecided voters?
Yes. I mean, we have been trying to go out there. This is her first time running a campaign, being able to get to more people to know Joy. Go to joyfoxcongress.com. We are going out in all the communities to make sure that we are making sure that they know that Joy is the right candidate.
So you mentioned this is her first campaign that she's running for herself. What makes her qualified then to hold elected office?
Yes, so she has worked for Jim Langevin, she has worked for Gina Raimondo, as she said on the stage. They turned to her to get the work done. She's worked in Rhode Island, she knows how it works in DC, and she knows what we need to do for the families of the 2nd District.
All right, so anything else that they didn't touch upon in the debate that you think folks should know about your candidate?
We did talk a little, they did come up a little bit, but really what we need to do for families, Joy is a big proponent for caregivers. That is something that she knows from her own family. So making sure that we have paid family leave that's permanent and making sure we have more resources for respite care.
All right, great. Thanks so much for being here, Kirtley. We appreciate it. Yeah, of course. So we're waiting on 12 News Politics editor Ted DC, who's going to be giving us some post-debate analysis, breaking the race down. And there he is. Perfect timing as always. How are you, Ted?
I'm good, Adriana. How are you?
I'm doing good. All right. So give us your initial reaction fresh off the debate. What did you think?
Well, you know, it certainly, I wouldn't say it was like a rock'em sock'em debate, right, Adriana? I mean, these were pretty polite set of Democrats. I think they did agree on quite a bit, and granted, we knew that going into this this debate, that there was a lot of agreement. I will say you saw some, you know, as you've talked about, Seth Magaziner is up 30 points in our poll, and, you know, most of the other campaigns don't dispute he's had a big lead. I thought I'd see a little more pushback directed at him, just because, you know, to get to Alan Fung, all these Democrats need to first defeat Magaziner if he is ahead. So I think, you know, particularly I will say, I thought David Siegel was able to differentiate himself on the issues, which again didn't surprise me because David, I've covered him since he was in the city council, or at least since he was a state rep. He's always been one of the most progressive politicians in Rhode Island, and I think he brought that message home. But I think, you know, I think you could hear the Magaziner people felt pretty good about his performance tonight. When you're the front runner, that's how you want to feel.
And you and I were talking yesterday, getting ready for this debate, and you mentioned this is a district that is friendlier towards Republicans. Do you think that folks at home are excited about voting for a Democrat after seeing this debate? It was pretty civil. There wasn't any flashy moments. You know, what do they have to do to defeat Alan Fung in November?
Well, and I think that's the challenge. You saw Alan Fung's out today with an ad, you know, a pretty, I would say, kind of happy-go-lucky, high-energy spot, and, you know, even his campaigns as long as kind of irreverent. That's kind of his brand. He's a mayor at heart, you know, and and I think the thing is, the Democrats, you heard them start to make the case against Alan Fung tonight, arguing he'll go down to Washington, he'll vote with Kevin McCarthy, that will help Donald Trump, etc. But the Fung people say they feel like they've got the chance because he's sort of got an independent image from his years up here as a mayor in Cranston, to sort of offset that in a way that many Republicans maybe couldn't, especially in a bluer leaning state here. So I think, and you heard, you know, that was an explicit message from both Joy Fox and Sarah Morgenthau. Joy Fox said, I think in her closing statement, something like, I'm pretty sure Alan Fung knows I'm the one he doesn't want to face. You know, her argument is, I think she said, down home like Alan Fung. You know, she's from the district, she grew up there, and she thinks that is what Democrats need to do. Of course, Seth Magaziner and Jim Langevin have agreed that Magaziner, with his fundraising chops and sort of institutional support, is the way to go. And then Sarah Morgenthau saying, I have experience, she's the best funded of the two women in the race, and making her case there. So I think you did hear all of them get to kind of enunciate what they're saying, but in a race that's not getting a lot of attention, and where Magaziner has had such a strong lead, I don't know, and I always say I leave it to the viewers to tell us over time whether anything happened to really seismically change the race tonight.
So there's 37% of voters are undecided as of our August 12 News poll. What do these candidates have to do to win some of those votes? Like, do they need to start criticizing each other more openly? What does one do to get that amount of votes onto your side?
Well, there's a limited number of things you can do, Adriana, in a race, especially when you have so many other elections going on right now. You have a governor's race sucking up a lot of the oxygen. The airwaves are absolutely packed at this point. You know, watch one of our Channel 12 newscasts at night. You also have Massachusetts candidates buying time. So even to just get the viewers' attention, I think, is getting harder. Away from television, which is the most expensive form of advertising, you know, you see them sending mailers. David Siegel's been doing that a lot. You always hear the hope that kind of a grassroots upsurge will carry someone across, but you need the voters to be paying a lot of attention for that to happen. And across the elections this cycle, it just doesn't seem like there's a ton of enthusiasm and energy to vote in this Democratic primary round. As you said, 37% undecided in this race. We had, I think, 21% still undecided in the governor's race, 61% in the treasurer's race. So, you know, the first question is really, are people paying enough attention to even differentiate these people? And if not, Seth Magaziner's team has to feel good. He has the most money, and he started out with a big lead. So, you know, we're going to be watching to see if these candidates are finding some way to break through that maybe hasn't been visible in the polls yet.
So what comes next? Primary day is September 13, and then as we head into November, what do you think we'll be seeing in this race?
Well, you know, I think we haven't seen a fresh poll of the, you know, Fung versus these Democrats, potentially Magaziner, based on who was leading previously. The last one in June from the Globe and Suffolk University had Fung slightly ahead, but I think both sides agreed this is probably going to be a dogfight of a race, because Alan Fung has a different image from most Republicans in Rhode Island that now Democrats are going to try try to change again and make him seem like a generic Republican. Meanwhile, I think, Seth Magaziners, if he is the nominee, has never faced a really aggressive, tough race with this level of scrutiny like a race for Congress. It's just not the same to run for treasurer. So I think you're going to see them going hammer and tongs as soon as September 14th. And now, if it's not Magaziner, which at this point would count as an upset, you're going to need to probably see a reset from some of the Republicans, because they are expecting Magaziner right now on the Republican side. Whether he's the best candidate or not, that's who they think is coming out. So I think both parties are going to take this really seriously. But I will say it's not the race we thought it might be in February when it was developing, because particularly of that Dobbs decision and the overturning of Roe v. Wade. I would say it was not expected last winter abortion policy would be as front and center as it is. Fung people try to keep it not front and center, but it's clearly in the discussion in a way that wasn't predicted.
Now that you mentioned abortion, do you think that the fact that that is at center stage at the national level, does that give then Morgenthau and Fox a little bit of an uplift, right? That folks think maybe we do need a woman in Congress?
It's a great point, Adrienne. I mean, the energy in the Democratic Party in recent years has been women voters. You saw the Women's March, I think the day after President Trump took office. You saw Hillary Clinton come close. Kamala Harris is the first woman VP. You see women winning Senate races. Gina Raimondo was the first woman governor of Rhode Island. So I think there is I think when some women in Rhode Island hear there's never been a Democratic woman in Congress, they say that ought to change at some point. Massachusetts has done it. But at the same time, they have to be able to get that message out. Sarah Morgenthau has had the money, but as we talked about tonight, because she's never really been a full-time Rhode Island resident, she's been a summer resident, it's just not clear to me she has the depth of support you would need. You saw Elizabeth Roberts, Murph York endorsing Joy Fox, even though she has significantly less money than Morgenthau. And you do have to wonder, if there had been only one woman in the race, which is what the Fox campaign originally expected before Morgenthau jumped in, would that be more of a direct contrast that might be affecting the votes more? Not to say that everyone's voting just for him, but there are voters who say, I want to send a woman to Congress. Well, now that's split in a way it wouldn't be if there was only one. And again, with Magaziner had that much, he was at 37% in our poll. It may not sound impressive, but that might be all it takes to win if you're splitting the vote this many ways.
All right, Ted, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Adriana.
And that was your 12 News post-debate analysis. Our next debate is September 6th at Rhode Island College. The Democratic candidates for the gubernatorial race will face off, and we have more coverage you can count on WPRI.com. I'm Adriana Rosas Rivera.